Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reach Out podcast. This is your host, Juan Pablo Orcas, and I want to thank you all for tuning in once again to this program and for just investing the time to work in your professional development journey. So, I want to take this space to just show a little bit more gratitude towards you guys and all of my friends that support this program however they can. And today we have a really, really special guest, Michelle Avalos. Thank you for being here, and how's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And every moment since I started doing like this in-person thing has been like just crazy learning experience, but super, super rewarding. So Michelle, just tell us a little bit more about you. Where do you went to school, and what do you do currently?
Okay. Well, I am originally from Mexico. I'm from Morelia, Michoacan, Mexico. And I've been here in the South Houston, Pasadena area since I was a little girl. I went to the University of Houston on scholarship, graduated with a degree in supply chain management, was originally studying accounting, but that's like a whole other thing, and was also in the School of Dance, but that's also a whole other thing. And I started my career in oil and gas and consulting. Worked for a company that literally worked with all the LNG companies around the world. So how old was I? I don't remember how old I was when I graduated. I was early 20s and literally sitting in boardrooms with like these like, oh my God, like con sus trajes. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember if it was English or Spanish, but I just remember thinking like, what am I doing here? Like, how did I get here? ¿Qué está pasando? Because I'm first generation. Right. And it was a pretty big deal for our family that also I'm the oldest. And so to have gotten the opportunity to like go to school, to get the scholarship, to go work at that big fancy company. Also that 5 years later I left and went into entrepreneurship, which is what I do now.
That's amazing. As I mentioned to you like a little bit before the interview, the more research that I did on you, I was getting like the more and more excited to interview you. And let me start off this interview by just letting you and the listeners and a little fun fact is that you, as you mentioned, you went to Bauer, you went to UH. I'm also doing my undergrad at Bauer currently, and you did supply chain management, right?
Yes.
And while you were at Bauer, you did an internship with SLB or Schlumberger.
Yes.
Right? That is the exact same internship with the exact same company with the exact same department that I'm doing right now.
What?
Like during this semester, I'm doing demand planning.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
What?
It is.
Wow.
So it's like same university, same school, same major, same internship.
Oh my goodness.
And I feel like some of the things in life are meant to be kept as coincidence. However, just meeting you, meeting Jose. Shout out to Jose and to Jorge Arellano for introducing us. I think that was definitely not a coincidence at all. The more that I get to see your work and the more that I get to presence the effort that you put in to helping these entrepreneurs achieve their goals, it makes me think like damn, like I want to be like Michelle. I want to be like Jose.
No.
I want to be able to help out the most people that I can help out and achieve their goals as well. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really, really thankful.
You're doing that with this podcast, right? You're helping people tell their stories, so you're already making that impact.
It's a crazy experience, but I like to think that. So
yeah,
this is pretty fun. So
that's insane. I still can't get over it. Wow.
I know. I was looking at it and I was like, hold on, like, is this my LinkedIn?
And I got that internship by accident. Like,
really?
I was working as a waitress, like, that was the last year I worked as a waitress. Okay. It was my last semester of college, and I still didn't have a traditional internship, right? Although, I was on the student officer board, HBSA, right. And I felt like that was an internship on its own. It's the best internship I ever had that wasn't paid or actually an internship. Right. But I was doing this internship mixer that the university has, and literally in my head, I'm like, I have to get something, like, I don't know. And I went up to the company where I wanted to intern because it was heavily promoted. It was like Bechtel.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, I want to go to Bechtel. So the first place I went to talk to in that internship mixer was Bechtel. And I totally messed it up.
Oh,
I was so nervous, and I was just like, hi, like I couldn't even talk. So I was like, oh man, well, you know what? I'm gonna go stand in line at Schlumberger or SLB. And my resume, I mean, I had all the student organization experience, but like everything else was that I was a waitress. And I was there talking to the recruiter, and I had just changed my major. So I also, it's not like I had 4 years of supply chain education. I had accounting experience. And then only recently I had supply chain classes. And as she's telling me like about, oh, your resume this or la da da da, I start saying, well, you know, I'm taking this class this semester, and I'm taking this class this semester. Well, what you just said, actually, I'm going to be learning it. So it's even better that I'm going to be in the class while we're going to be doing that. Because, you know, I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And it was a total accident that I got that. Well, it wasn't an accident. It was God. But that she found an internship that didn't exist.
Right.
Because somebody needed
really?
that help. And she was also somebody that was running the Latin American side of the demand planning pieces. And she wanted to work with somebody that spoke Spanish. And because I spoke Spanish fully bilingual, they hired me. Well, I still interview and all that stuff, right? But they hired me for the role primarily, I feel, because of that as well, because I was able to communicate with the person. So yeah, it was like serendipity, I guess.
That is amazing. You know, like the fact that it was not even an internship, but they just like made it work for you. That is pretty cool. And, you know, like you mentioning HBSA, I have a few friends in HBSA. I remember also like standing in line for Bechtel and like last career fair before I got the other internship. And I was just like, my friend works at Bechtel and he makes it sound really cool. So I was just kind of like, I remember there was 2 recruiters. So one, like you're at the line, and the guy in front of you goes to one, then you go to the second one, then you go to line. You know, it's alternate. So I could see one of them had a name tag, but the other one didn't. So I kind of like squinted my eyes and looked at her name tag, and I looked her up on LinkedIn. So I just learned everything that I could about her in like 4 or 5 minutes while I was in line, and I could tell that I was going to the wrong recruiter. Like it was my choice. I was like, you guys can go. Like, I'm going to this one. But that's super funny. And I was also a waiter, by the way.
Okay. Wow. See?
Yeah.
I think that's the best. Like everyone needs to be a waiter at one point in their lives, because the level of like, it's a servant mentality and that never goes away. But you also get to see so many sides of other people.
Yes.
And you learn what not to do and how not to treat people by being a server and not getting treated well.
Definitely. No, it's a wild learning experience. And as you said, I'll definitely recommend it for all those freshmen, all those young people that want to get started. It prepares you for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, Michelle, we met at the Bar Gala last month, but we also saw each other at H-Town Roundup.
Yeah. Amazing
event. Over 5,000 people attending. We were talking about this with Natera last episode. And during your panel, you were mentioning how Latinos make up about 8% of the tech industry, but we're about 20% of the U.S. population as a whole.
Yeah.
Right? So talk to me about the importance of changing the narrative and transforming Latinos from consumers to founders in the tech industry.
Yeah, it's something that in the last year, with launching Tech 23 and really diving into what our community means for just the U.S. economy in general. We're a $3 trillion purchasing power, and you probably hear that stat all the time. But we started thinking about it from the context of, yes, we're a $3 trillion purchasing power, great. These big companies, they already know that, and so you've already seen it in all the marketing commercials and like all those, the way that they're placing actors in the different commercials, the way they're talking to our cultura, because they want our money, right? Like, so they want that purchasing power to be spent only as like consumption. And in technology, like we're one of the biggest consumers of technology, right? But we're not, as you said, the biggest producers. What that does is that we are only receiving, like we're getting from the top down, here's what you get to use and enjoy it. but also make us a lot of money because you're the one that's going to use this tech. And so in certain industries like the health tech space, for example, you think about all these amazing apps that exist and hardware for like tracking diabetes, for example, right? Like, oh, look, this exists now and it comes with an app. Well, how is the 60-year-old grandparent that doesn't speak English supposed to use this app?
Right.
If they can just recently mastered, how to do video chats on like WhatsApp, or maybe FaceTime, but that's like one button. Right. How are they supposed to manage through these charts and to do all these things? If a Latino did not create the software and the technology that is solving the problems that our community is facing, then they are not thinking that they need to have certain mechanisms in place to facilitate the user experience so that we can actually use those tools for our benefit. And it makes a huge difference when you have representation at the table in designing these technologies, because it gets built for the people that are using it. That one of the largest consumers, right, of technology is the Latino community. And so it started there. It started with this sense of like, I understand, like, I am now educated and I went to college and I, thanks to this scholarship, I was able to gain access to all this knowledge. But the majority of our community doesn't have that. And so now that we know that, how are we passing that along and empowering others that are watching and listening to this conversation right now to say, hey, yeah, I see a problem in wherever in my life or my family or my neighborhood, and I have an idea to fix that problem with technology. Guess what? You can actually be the one to build that. And so in my new role, even in entrepreneurship with Impact Hub Houston, how are we bringing those resources to the table so that diverse founders can build those things that they're imagining, those ideas that they have in their brains? How do we help them actually create that and build that? And now you'll see a shift in dynamic with who is really creating. And I think you'll see something that's just more genuine, more organic in the technology that's going to get developed in the future.
100%. And, I like how you mentioned the user experience of it all. And I think just switching it from us adapting to them, it should be the other way around. As you mentioned, whenever we're buying all these products, we don't think about, let's say, like 80-year-old grandma, Latina from Guatemala that doesn't know how to use it. So it's a great point. And I love that you mentioned Impact Hub Houston, because ever since I went to H-Town Roundup, it just opened my eyes to Impact Hub, the Ion, Greenhouse Labs, this huge ecosystem that is Greater Houston, to just build entrepreneurs up and helping them get the resources to just make it a better place and make it more adaptable to our actual needs, to the actual user. Yeah. So I love that. And I love how also you mentioned Tech 23. Tech 23, in my eyes, is just the whole definition of innovation. It is a media company, and I encourage everyone to look it up because it is amazing. However, the podcast aspect of it, hosted by Jose, does not follow the norm or the blueprint of a normal podcast. Yeah. Its format is so creative. From flipping the switch of like, hey, let's not go to a studio, let's go to a different restaurant, native to the guest. Every single episode. So every single episode, we go to a different restaurant. Yeah. We eat the food with the guest, and we change the scenario, right in the middle of the conversation. We use this Spanglish kind of language dialect to just make the guest feel more at home, bring the culture to them in this environment. So that to me was just amazing. And as I said, in my eyes, the seed of Tech 23 is just to excel by innovating. So I want to ask you, Michelle, what kind of future do you want to see for the next generation of professionals and entrepreneurs, and how does Tech 23 contribute to that future, let's say 5-10 years from now?
That's a great question. So Tech 23, a media and entertainment company for the advancement of Latinos in tech, is, to me, the starting point for where we're going to create this impact and this shift. We decided to make this a media and entertainment company, whereas in the past, it's always been just, we're creating this community, and we're we're organizing people, we're doing events for the community, we're doing community projects, and we're volunteering our time, and we did that for over 10 years. And this is the first time that we put together a for-profit company. But we wanted to approach this issue from a different lens, which is entertainment and content creation. And we're talking about the work Tech 23 is doing now is to increase the number of Latinos that go into technology, right? We could easily do a bunch of panels and keep doing conferences and sit down in rooms of 200, 300, whatever, 50, 10 people, whatever it is, and talk to you about the things. But we are trying to build with the community, right? And one of the ways to do that, firstly, we want you to be able to see yourself on the screen. And so traditionally, even when we're talking about Latinos, although I am Mexican, proud Mexicana, Latinos are not just Mexican, right? We represent 22 Latin American flags plus the Latino in the U.S., the 23rd Latino. And we're always evolving and shifting, and our cultures are not one culture. They are 20 plus cultures. And so we are intentionally recruiting stories from Latinos that work in technology so that we can organically tell that history, that journey that they've taken into the tech landscape. So starting with visibility of diverse Latino backgrounds is how we're trying to bridge that gap on the screen, making it fun, like you said, because it's the culture, like entertain me. Sábado Gigante meets Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon. It's literally the approach that we took. And we're starting with this platform of YouTube, Spotify, have stuff on socials. But when we did our launch event, our brand, our announcing the first podcast, we hosted it at iPic. Right. And we had a movie screening to do a bite-sized version of multiple episodes that we were about to release, and to sit down in a cinema, like in a seat, and you're watching a movie, you have popcorn, and guess who's on the big freaking screen in front of you, right? It's your people. Yeah. The people that like your friends, and you're it's like you're watching the movie of their life, but it's about empowering through technology and through becoming producers and not just consumers. And so it starts there. And then what was the rest of the question? Remind me the rest of the question.
Yeah. So with all that Tech 23 is, what do you see the future being for next generation of professionals?
Yeah, so it's authenticity, right? When you approach any industry, but with your authentic self, you're already shifting the dynamic, because the perspective you bring to the table is it's unique. Right. When maybe it was a little different when I was in oil and gas, because again, all the limitations that you face as first generation, but then on top of that, I was the only female in the company. Oh. So then those, right? So there's certain nuances that you have to overcome and learn to leverage resources. Like at the time I was involved with ALPHA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. So how do I go and get mentorship and support outside of the building where I work, so that I can come back into the building where I work and have that ownership? But how do you then, in other scenarios, bringing your own authentic journey and experience, you can just shift the dynamic and the production of whatever is going to be created in whatever industry it is. I'm trying to keep it general because yes, I'm talking about media and entertainment for Tech 23, but Impact Hub, social entrepreneurship. Who knows the problem better than the person that was going through the issue? Yeah. And so no one is going to be able to know the nuances. No, actually, if you make that page red instead of yellow, this is why it won't work. For any other designer, they might have just said, well, this is a pretty color. Or, there's all the psychological stuff behind colors. But what if in the neighborhood where you're launching, they used to write these murals in red letters that were promoting hate and doing all these things. So now that you've introduced this solution that is resembling the colors of the things that were actually doing the opposite, the adoption rate is going to be lower. Right. So those little details, right? Like growing up in the flea market and all the dynamics that I understand from vendors, and the hard the barrier that you have to overcome with like, well, why don't you just use Zelle or Cash App that exists now but wasn't there back then? Well, because this is a dynamic of the process when you're selling at the flea market. So you can't just show up with, well, here's my square. No, you have to understand the process. Well, if someone didn't have that experience, they can't show up at the innovation meeting with the product designers to bring that perspective. So that's what we see. The future, I hope, is a room empowered for people to be their genuine, authentic selves and learn to own their voice in that sense and not be afraid of pushback, almost getting comfortable with the fact that, look, not everyone's going to agree with what you have to say. Get some leadership development, figure out how do I express myself in ways that becomes constructive and not create just like, what's the right animosity, right? Like, get that training that's needed, seek out those resources like Alpha and other organizations that provide professional development so that you can be your authentic self and own your voice.
Definitely. I love how, like, connected to what you said, it was like the concept of pioneering all this stuff, changing the narrative, because we grow accustomed to doing things a certain way because that's what we were told, right? And companies such as like Tech23 and Impact Hub, like it's about changing the narrative for the ultimate goal of that, just normalizing authenticity all around the market. So, Michelle, as I mentioned before, I'm still doing my undergrad, and the way I make money and just pay the bills and just get professional experiences through internships and co-ops, just as most of my friends do. And Impact Up Houston, which you're the co-founder and the deputy director, just recently launched their internship program for this summer. Application just closed last week.
Yes, sorry.
But Michelle, tell us, what can the interns expect out of this program, and what advice do you have for them in order to succeed during this summer internship?
So I'm really excited about the internship program because I was an intern before, right? So it's like you learn from your own experience, and we didn't just want to create like a position that you were going to be running around the co-working space and like cleaning stuff up and we need help doing that. I literally was just cleaning the dishes like yesterday. So it's part of the entrepreneur journey. But what we wanted to do with our internship program is really immerse the interns into the social entrepreneurial, social innovation industry and dynamic, because it's a different entrepreneurial lens than a traditional entrepreneur. And so although we have created roles that are specific to different marketing elements like digital marketing, storytelling, we have elements around community engagement. The intention is still, though, to do that from the thread of social impact and social innovation. So not only are you going to be interacting with the social entrepreneurs we work with, we have, I think we're around 120 right now, social entrepreneurs in Houston, or diverse entrepreneurs in Houston that are wanting to have a social enterprise. You're going to be learning about their businesses and the different nuances and dynamics and challenges. You're going to be exposed to entrepreneurship, basically. But then we're also going to be putting them into these real projects. Like these are things that actually need to get done. And our hope is that we do our training correctly and then empower them so that those interns can actually finish the internship by saying, this is what I was able to accomplish. Like I brought my voice into the table, and then this was the result. That's our goal with the program.
That is amazing. I got to tell you, like as soon as I saw the post on LinkedIn that there was an internship in Impact Hub, I was like, oh, let me see the application. And then I remember I have another internship going on. And I was like, oh, but I would have loved, because, preparing for this interviews, preparing for H-Town Roundup and Media Day, I came across like Impact Hub, all the things that were going on at the ION, all these co-working spaces here in Houston, and the businesses from the social entrepreneurs. Getting that experience like firsthand for an internship, that is just amazing. I absolutely love the concept of it.
Yeah, and it's paid.
It is paid.
So we're finally able to offer internships, right? And so we said no, they have to be paid, because the struggle. I actually had I had offered an internship before the Schlumberger one, It was actually with an insurance company and it wasn't paid. And I remember I was like, no, like I have to get something. So, you know, I'm going to have to take this. But the way they pitched it, I didn't realize it wasn't going to be paid. So I'm so excited. Like I still have the picture of when I got the email that says you've been accepted. Like every college student is looking for that email that says, congratulations. Yeah. We have an offer for you, right? For internship or full time. And I got so excited. And then it ended up being something completely different. And quite frankly, I was like, I have bills to pay. I wasn't living at home anymore, you know, and it's like, I can't spend these hours not working because I have bills to pay. So that was a priority for us. But obviously everyone has their own situation and experience. I'm not saying that non-paid internships are bad. I'm just saying pay them. I'm just saying pay us, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, like being a student right now, there's a large spectrum of where there's like things that you look for in an internship goes for, you know, definitely pay goes a long way. And I think it often is like a double-edged sword because I say this a lot, like when you graduate, it feels like the end of the world. Like there's a cliff and you just like whatever is out there is out there. But like we're in this constant like countdown till graduation.
Yeah.
So all that we know is internships and co-ops.
Yeah.
So it's like we have to have a job up until the end of this cliff. And we focus like ourselves so hard on the pay, like hourly rate of the internship. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, always negotiate. But internship is just like the first step.
Yes.
To the staircase to the door. You know?
Yeah, and then an internship helps you figure out whether or not you like that job in the first place too, right? Like. Yeah. Do you want to work at a big company or would you rather work at a medium size or a small company? Because it's a totally different dynamic. My first full-time role was at the actual company, like the office was smaller. The company was massive.
Right.
But normally what your pitch is like, go work at this big building with like, we own 4 floors. And what work are you, like the level of exposure that you're going to get? What is that compared to I'm working the suite where I actually work is this small. But I'm meeting with CEOs of oil and gas companies all around the world. Like I am actually there at the meetings. I'm actually part of the strategy versus like I'm there taking notes. Those are totally different dynamics, right? And so the same with internships. Like that's what internships are for anyway. But anyone that has an entrepreneurial itch, start launching that business too while you're a student. Everyone wants to buy from students, but when you're not a student anymore.
That student card is very valuable.
Use that student card.
I've had very heartfelt conversations with Ms. Rita Bautista. And I remember a funny story that I saw her unexpectedly, and then some of the questions that you always have, but there's like certain people that want to hear the answer from, you know? So I asked Rita, I'm kind of like nervous to graduate because, you know, you're the podcast lady, you know? But like
she's amazing.
She's amazing. And I was like, my podcast is not that big. It's like still like going and try like scrabble to do it. But I feel like a lot of it has worked because I'm a student, you know? And people sympathize with that. Yeah. And I'm kind of nervous to let that go because what if it doesn't work after? And it's like, you're just building, like you're just planting the seed, you know? People are not going to listen to your podcast because you're a student. You're going to listen to it because of the value that you bring, the guests that you bring, and the quality that you bring to the professional development journey. That definitely eases my mind up a lot. Yeah. But I say this a lot, and all of my guests have this pattern, you included. It's like, use your student card for everything, you know? Join orgs, network, apply, talk to people, everything. It's so valuable, especially here in Houston, you know? So. Yeah,
I have one more story to add there. I forgot. I think I was a senior probably because I was already supply chain. I only switched my last year, by the way.
Really?
I was like accounting all the way through till the last year. I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. I want to do supply chain. Yeah. But I was at start networking outside of campus, even as a student, which you're obviously doing right now, and you've been doing. But I remember that there was an oil and gas event that was happening at like whatever, some theater here in Houston. and Shell was putting it together. They were discussing a documentary that I had watched for whatever reason. I don't remember why I watched that documentary. And I said, you know what? Like, I am going to go to that event. And I forgot how I got there. Like, it was a ticketed event, I think. So I don't remember how I got there. Point is, I'm there. I'm in the stadium, like this big stadium. I'm one of the only students. Jose was with me at the time. We were already dating. And I want an internship at Shell, right? Like, that's what I want. Or at least that's what I wanted at the time. And they have a panel, and they have like some person from Forbes. They have like so-and-so, like a top level executive from Shell, and like 2 other people, all dudes. And they finally do Q&A, and there's like 2 people that stood up, also guys. And then, you know, one thing I had just done a leadership program. It might've been Leadership or one of those. Yeah. And I feel like they were kind of pushing you to say like, hey, well, get out of your comfort zone, use your student card. Yeah. So I remember I was like so nervous and my heart was pounding, and I went up there and I asked a question. Granted, this is not a student event. Like, these are only professionals. Right. And I don't remember what I asked, but I asked something that was kind of like challenging and like, I don't know, I brought it back to students, right? I made it about something that I was familiar with. And it worked so well that this person on the stage, he's made the comment. He's like, oh, someone told him, oh, if you don't hire her. Oh. And then he was just like, ha, ha, ha. And then he's like, talk to me out. Like, this is in the middle of this big event. He literally just talked to me after the panel. And I was like, ah. I'm like, oh, yes, of course. You know, todo así. And then, yeah, I met with them after I got, like, interviewed by people from the documentary afterwards. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm just doing my thing. You know, I'm, like, trying to get a job. Like, that's really what's happening here. And I was able to interview for Shell. And it was important because I actually didn't qualify to interview for Shell. My GPA wasn't high enough. So when I tried to apply through Shell, before that, I immediately didn't pass on to the next round because they straight said GPAs, and I failed an accounting class, you know, and I dropped my GPA. And so I was just out. But putting myself in an environment that was like totally outside of the school grounds and using my voice and doing all those things, I actually was able to get an interview for Shell after the fact, even though they had rejected me the first time. But it was because of that experience. Now, at the end, obviously, I didn't work at Shell. I didn't get it. But the point is, you can open doors when you expand outside of your school bubble. So do what Juan Pablo is doing here right now because it works.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's such a great example and a great story because I cannot tell you how many things I've gotten because of that, you know? I'll say this right now. I'll be completely transparent. My GPA is not the best. You know? But it's like, I just love talking to people, you know? And I'll say this little story with the intention of you guys do your research before you go and talk to someone, especially if they're like pretty like high up, because where we met at the bar gala, I remember Mr. Tillman Fertitta was there, right? And but also people from HPE were there, Hewlett Packard, and I remember when Tillman Fertitta got up his table and everyone was just like walking around, everyone just kind of like a storm went to Fertitta's table just to talk to him for a few seconds. And I was like, for the beginning of the event, I was like, I really want to talk to the CEO of HP. Because I was told he was going to be there, you know? I was told he was going to be there. And I like took advantage of the moment where everyone was walking, and I went up to the HP table. And before I kind of looked him up, like to see how he looked like. Yeah. And there was this guy that looked exactly like him. He looked exactly like the guy. And I remember I went up to him, and I was so convinced that it was him. And I was like, his name is Antonio. I was like, Antonio? And he was like, nope. And I was like, oh, I'm not prepared for this. And he was like, are you looking for him? And I was like, oh, man, you just look a lot like... And he was like, oh, like, nice to meet. He was super nice, by the way. I'm not going to say his name because I'm kind of embarrassed again. But he was like, nice to meet you. Like, I just talked to him about, like, his internship program, how, like, everyone from UH that goes there absolutely loves it. And he was super nice about it. Thankfully, he said, like, I'll tell Antonio that you said this. But I definitely feel like, oh, my God. Like, I should have, like, just be a little more careful. But yeah, moving on, Michelle. Let me tell you a bit more about my favorite sport.
Okay.
I love boxing.
Okay.
This is my absolute favorite sport. I absolutely love it. I do it from time to time, and it's so fun. And one of the things that I love about boxing is that, you know, every fight has 12 rounds, right? And you can win each fight either by points or by knockout. And whenever you're in like the 11th or 12th round, or what they call like the championship rounds, and you've lost every single round before that, you can still win, but you have to knock him out. You know? So at that point, you have to knock your fighter in front of you. You have to win. You have to succeed. Succeeding becomes a requirement, right? And the reason why I bring this up is because I have the privilege to go and listen and watch one of your a TED Talk that you did 4 years ago. And you were talking about being the first generation student, first professional in the family, then, you know, first corporate job. And so with this, you were saying how whenever you're the first to do this in a Latin family especially, you're held suddenly to a different standard. You know? Of course, you have to get the good grades. Of course, you have to work through college. Of course, you have to land a secure job. Yeah. But you also have to succeed at those. Succeeding now suddenly becomes a requirement. You have to win. Yeah. There's no other option. So I want to ask you, tell me how that mindset of succeeding is a requirement has paved your trajectory, and what lesson do you want the listeners to take away from your story?
Oh my gosh. I'm literally like about to cry over here. Thank you for watching that.
I loved it.
Thank you so much for watching that. It was a scary time that day. I actually was organizing the event at the same time. And,
oh, really?
I only wrote half of that speech. And right before I went on, I was upstairs because I was running around. I was, you know, and I said, God, you brought me here, so you finish the speech. And then I went to the stage.
Oh, my God.
So it means a lot that you watched that. And what I'll say is that the version of Michelle in, I forgot if that was 2018 or 2019, and the version of Michelle in 2024 it's just an evolution. And we all start with that mentality because it's what we get trained. And we get trained that way by people that were also trained that way, that are now in positions of success, in positions of like, you know, I'm these top roles, or I make this much money, and I have these like all the external things. And we don't hold it against them because it's what they learn, and their intention was to pass that along to the next generation. But in the beginning stages of my career path, that was very much that level of stress and responsibility to succeed. Like, it really wasn't an option because your family is at home and you are responsible for so many things, right? Especially as the oldest, coming from a broken home as well. I had to take a corporate role. I had to be able to get to the position to be financially like sustainable so that I could provide back, right? And I had to make sacrifices. We all do. We had to make so many sacrifices. But then at the same time, you push back and you say, no, but I don't want to do that, right? And then that's where that started bleeding in with, well, after I'm done with my corporate job, I'm going to go after working on the weekends, and I'm going to do these volunteer projects, and I'm going to commit all these hours. And fast forward to the time that I had made that speech, I had just recently transitioned into social entrepreneurship. And what I've learned since is actually a whole other world. It's this balance between, yes, you have to own this level of confidence in who you are and your abilities, but you also have to learn how to respect other people. You have to learn how to navigate different environments and communities, and while doing so, remaining authentic, like to yourself. I feel like I'm about to give that Barbie speech. That's how I feel right now. I was like, wait, I'm starting to give off the Barbie speech. But I've learned to give back to God so much control that I was holding on to. That I felt like, no, I am responsible for so much, and that weight on your shoulders, I have to win. I have to, like, this, it's me or no one, right? There has been so much shedding of that, and the lightness that comes after that is just transformative. And being able to now walk into even networking events where I was trained to go seek out the top person in this room, make sure you talk to them, make sure you're the best dressed, make sure, like, all the things you have to follow. I have unlearned so much of that since. And I now am able to, first of all, say no to so much. Mm-hmm. I don't have to be at all the networking events. I don't have to be there. I am working still, but I don't have to be always in front of other people. I don't have to always be showing people that I'm doing something. I work one-on-one with entrepreneurs all the time. And that's for me, that's where it needs to stay. And when it's relevant, then I'll be out, and I don't have to always be in rooms showing that I'm dominant, showing that. And now I have the liberty to show up somewhere and go sit in the corner because, hey, a lot of people didn't know that I actually am, like, introverted. I'm an extroverted introvert. Right. I, like, hated being at those things. And my battery was always like, oh, yeah, sácame de aquí, ya no quiero estar aquí. But I have to go and do these things because networking and meet the next person. So I think there's been an evolution, but there was a one gap in that transition from then and now where I feel that I try to flip completely and I lost a sense of myself. I lost the sense of, no, I am though, but I think operations and I am dominant in some areas and I am assertive in certain areas. And because I was trying to do the complete opposite of, like, I'm a badass, I'm a powerhouse, get out of my way, I actually hid so much of my ability because I was trying to shrink it down to be more, more, I guess, humble and more just quiet and, the opposite. Thankfully, like, in the journey you learn and you realize, like, no, I don't need to fully not be myself. Like, that was part of me. That is part of what the asset I bring to different meetings, to the table, to working with entrepreneurs. And so it's been an evolution. So I'm not saying, like, don't have that mentality at all. I'm just saying that learn to still embrace that, have that confidence in who you are and your ability, but always continue to be kind. And in my opinion, everything else is going to work its way out. If it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. You don't have to pretend to be something you're not to try to get a contract. Hey, maybe you weren't supposed to get that contract.
Right. That is amazing. When I say that I love that TED Talk, I mean it. There was a moment, I encourage everyone out there to watch it. I'm going to link it as well. That Michelle said, I want you guys to repeat after me to the audience. And, like, I am worthy. And everyone in the audience said, I am worthy. And I feel like that just comes within every piece of me is worthy as well. What you mentioned, you learn through the trajectory, but you have to be as you as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very, very powerful message. And I'm sure that the you today is, like, just so proud to see the you of 2018, 2019, because it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be okay. And I want everyone out there to know that you guys are worthy. However you come, whatever you think, and however your perspective is on different topics, you have to be yourself as much as you can. And that's how I end this interview, not before asking you my personal favorite question, which is, Michelle, what makes you happy?
Being with my husband. That I have a life partner that we have the same goal and, like, vision. We just have different ways that we get there, and we get to do that together and learn together and travel together and stumble together and fail together. It's definitely that.
Amazing. Jose, I freaking love you, guy. I barely met you, but, like, you're so real. And I'll say, like, right now, what makes me happy is being here with you. I will definitely say I was driving down here, and I was talking on the phone with one of my friends, and he was like, man, like, stuff at work it's a little tricky, you know. School is a little tricky. You know, trying to do this little challenge with my friends where like every day is like dial to 11. I got to work out 2 times a day, eat healthy, like all these things. So, like that's a little tricky. But I'm on my way to do this podcast, and I'm so happy that I'm doing it. You know, this podcast brings so much freaking joy to me, and yeah. So, to everyone out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing day, Michelle. Do you have anything to say for the listeners?
He's awesome. Follow him. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Of course, thank you for being here, and yeah, guys, see you in the next one.